Hi, Fred Reynolds here, and welcome to my One Foot in Front of the Other channel. For those of you joining for the first time, welcome. And for those of you who've watched some of my stuff in the past, welcome back. It's end of June, and some of you may be thinking about climbing Aconcagua down in Mendoza, Argentina. I did it this past December 2022. And I had done Kilimanjaro in September of 21, and that's a great segue, having that experience at 19,341 and Aconcagua being at 22,837, 838, whatever. I've seen both numbers, but it's a really good segue. So if you're thinking about it, I just thought I'd offer a few tidbits of things that might be helpful. So if at the end of the video, if you like it, give it a thumbs up. And certainly if you're a first timer, would love for you to subscribe. My Aconcagua video will be out, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Anyhow, hey, I looked at 4 outfitters when I was researching Aconcagua, and I went with a company called AMG, Aconcagua Mountain Guide. So yeah, give them a plug. Got a t-shirt, and it's really a nice t-shirt actually, but I'm not getting anything promotionally from them in doing this, but I do want to give them a shout out. Awesome group, and all they do is Aconcagua, both the normal and the Polish 360 route. But whatever you decide to do, your call. I went the normal route, and it was an experience it was fabulous, just absolutely fabulous. And I'll get to the itinerary here in a little bit, but both cost and itinerary was one of the reasons that I chose AMG. And anyhow, again, I think it's a great group. I do want to touch on travel. I've been a Delta guy for a long time. Retired now, but in my business life, I probably flew Delta 99% of the time. So I'm buying a ticket. I say, I'm going to get a bunch of miles. This is going to be great. Well, Delta flies into Buenos Aires, and I said, I'll just, I'll get one of the local Buenos Aires carriers and just, transfer. Well, it's not that easy. Buenos Aires, huge city. They have an international terminal and they have a domestic terminal. And in between is about a 60-minute cab ride, car ride, whatever you decide to do. It's a little bit of a hassle, I'll just share with you. Also an additional cost. So if I made that mistake, bad on me, but if you have the chance, I would fly into maybe Santiago, Chile, Sao Paulo, some other city. Find one that you're not having to change airports. It'll save you a pretty good headache. But did get to Mendoza and picked up at the airport by AMG, and they put us up in this really, really nice hotel downtown. And a lot of the climbers, I met other groups there as well. And, some of the chit-chat and very international atmosphere, which was really cool. They also had a really nice bar. And in the morning, they had a breakfast buffet that I can't say enough about. I probably spent an hour there each morning that I was at the hotel. And we also stayed there when we got back from the trip. But, hey, Mendoza, beautiful city. I had a couple of extra days there as well ahead of time, and I explored, I walked, I shot some video, I shot some stills, and I had some really, really good meals that you would not be disappointed in either, and very inexpensive as well. But hey, the next part, conditioning. I want to touch on that. You're going to have some days where you're going to have long days, not only from a distance standpoint, but from a time standpoint. I'm based out of Park City, Utah, and going up at 8, 9, 10, 11,000 feet, 12,000 feet, up here in the Uintas, which are close to me as well. But I have that blessing, that luxury. I can also go some pretty good distances as well. And you're going to find that you're going to be out on the trail sometimes anywhere from 3 hours to 9 hours. So I would really encourage you, as you get maybe closer to your trip, but do a couple, 3 days to where you can really experience a long hike. It'll be beneficial. And if you had to go up and come back down and go up and come back down, you know, to me, that's worth it. And again, spending the time might be boring, might be tough on you, but spending the time, I think, will be rewarding once you get up on Aconcagua. You know, and also, if you're by yourself, I have my dog, Millie, who I call my trainer. But, you know, Millie doesn't give a lot of conversation. So, you know, I'm by myself a lot. And having that focus and having that discipline can be very helpful, and at the same time can be very tough. You know, you have that little guy on your shoulder that says, you don't have to do that today. And you know, just go halfway today, and let's go do some other stuff today. But I was fortunate to keep that focus, keep that discipline, and keep that grind going. It's easy to get distracted, but again, having again the benefit of being retired certainly is very helpful, and I can go every single day if I want to and need to. But at the moment, I'm training 5 out of 7 days, going to Everest Base Camp end of September, and so Millie and I are back on the trails and hiking. One thing too, you know, I mentioned focus and the discipline of training, but one thing I started with Aconcagua, and I'm doing it now for Everest Base Camp, is I keep a training journal, and it helps to keep me accountable and to keep my focus on it. So I can see it every single day, and I write in it every time that I train. The length I go, the time I go, the vertical that I climb or go up, how much weight I'm carrying in my backpack. And I think those things, it's helped me. Do what you like, but I can tell you from an accountability standpoint, I've benefited from that a lot. All right, so trip. I did just a FYI, I did a packing video back in November on what I did take to Aconcagua. And, you know, one of the things that you'll find is that mules take all of your gear from where they organize just outside of the park entrance. And I did get a 150 liter North Face bag. On my flights, my backpack was in here as well as this being pack, and that came in handy. Got beat up pretty good on the mules, but again, it's survived. A little dirty still, but I'll be using it again going to Nepal in September. I highly recommend the 150 liter by North Face. Couple of things here on the table that I felt were key, and also with AMG, it was a Sunday afternoon, but we did a gear check, and I did pass with some good flying colors, which I felt good about. But after the gear check, there were 7 in our group, 7 guests, 7 clients. And what was great was, again, I meant very international. me from the United States, Canadian, 2 gentlemen from France, 1 now living in New Zealand, German, Indian, and Russian. So it really was a really great international group. But of the 7 of us, 3 of us brought pretty much everything we needed. So just to kind of give you a heads up too, I did take the Las Sportivas Olympus Mons boot, and just as an FYI, I wear a size 9, and in metric that's 42. If you do decide to buy, but they say get a couple sizes metric-wise bigger. This is a 44, and coming down, you just don't want to keep jamming your toes into the front of that boot. But anyhow, these were great. Highly recommend them. But my point, after the gear check, we walked over to an outfitter, a climbing outfitter store, and they had everything that you needed if you wanted to rent. So for the group, I know rented boots and crampons. I can't remember how many rented sleeping bags, and they also have the opportunity to rent a down parka, climbing helmet as well. But I had all my stuff, and I felt that was very beneficial having it, so that way I can keep using it. A couple of things too that I bought or brought with me and I've used in the past. I think knee braces are huge, especially for me, especially coming down. This is a product by Donjoy. I do wear these skiing on occasion, but having a sleeve that's easy to put on really can be very beneficial. Another piece, Mountain Hardwear, that I really liked. These are not inexpensive by any means, and they do stuff pretty well. And it's a 800 fill pant, but you know, it's a puffy pant, and snap, zipper key, and also has drawstring ties. So highly recommend these. Again, they weren't inexpensive by any means, but I highly recommend them a lot. Another piece, this is a product from backcountry.com. What I like about it, and again, UHF as well, long sleeve, lightweight, breathable, wickable, but this hoodie coming over the top, I could either put this ball cap on. I also brought a Tilly, and it went over this really nicely. I had melanoma in this ear a few years ago, and yeah, the big one, melanoma. So I had about 2/3 of this ear cut off and kind of fabricated back on. But yeah, it's important to not only have sun protection in clothing, but also sunscreen, face, ears, neck, just in case you don't have something with a hood on it. But that's hugely important, people. You know, another thing I want to talk about along with training is that you're going to be consuming a lot of water. This is 32 ounces or 1 liter, and they're going to ask you to really drink a lot of water, and it could be 4 to 5 liters a day. Train yourself to consume and drink water. Very important. Water, keeping food in you, and then the pace being as slow as it is will help you with acclimatizing. Something else I got, and this is a product from 40 Below, company I believe out of the Seattle, Washington area. But as you got higher, things start to freeze. But this neoprene Nalgene bottle cover, I had 2 of these, but I never had any water freezing issues, so highly recommend that as well. But hey, to the trip, itself, you get to park entrance, jacked up, excited, adrenaline. In that, you're at about 9,000 feet. You're going to go up, about almost 1,900 feet to Confluencia, which is the lower base camp. There we spent 2 nights. We did a practice training, acclimatization hike to a place called Plaza Francais. And that's the view. You see I'll call it the backside of Aconcagua. You see a lot of pictures of this one, but snow, and we actually saw a couple of mini avalanches while we were there, but long day. And anyhow, you come back, you're gonna have a mandatory medical check. They listen to your lungs, heart, hey, this little guy, blood oxygen, and love number, as well as your blood pressure. You got to pass that to go up to Plaza de Mulas. So next morning, a long day. Could be 9, could be 10 hours, could be, I'm going to say anywhere from 8 to 10 hours. It's about 12 miles, and first couple of miles, I won't say up and down, but you go down to do a river crossing, back up, and that's when you're going to start engaging some of the mule trains. Probably 2 miles into that, you're going to get into what they call the Playa Ancha, and kind of wide beach. It is wide, and it's just a steady incline, nothing major, but the footing, I talked about training on different types of terrain, but the footing you're going to experience there is just all over the map. And a couple of, river crossings, not river, excuse me, stream crossings, but nothing major. But you'll get a kick out of that. You get to, you're about 8 miles of the playa, and then you get to this thing called the Cuesta Brava, and it goes kind of like that. And what's the cliche? They save the best for last. Holy mackerel! Anyhow, it's just a series of short switchbacks, but I mean, it's pitchy, people. And it's like, you hear you've just been going and going and going on the playa, and you get to this thing and you're like, are you kidding me? But you get to the top, and then it's maybe about another 1.5 miles to base camp. And when you see it for the first time, I mean, it's the second largest base camp in the world, second to Everest Base Camp. Colorful tents everywhere, and AMG has a pretty good size little camp there that I was very impressed with. But hey, set up your tents, and here's your home for the next 10, 12 days. They have showers, and there was internet if you wanted it. I waited till I got back to the hotel where it was free, but to do any kind of communicating with a lot of people. But I did use my Garmin Mini through their EarthMate app, and I texted just a couple of people. My daughter, she let my family know what was going on. Then I had another friend in Park City, as well as a coworker, that former coworker, that I just kind of let them disseminate where I was, what I was doing. But yeah, we were at Plaza de Mulas for a rest day the next day. And looking around, I was looking to the west and this one peak, and I saw what looked to be a trail, and I was like, good night, that looks nasty. Well, guess what? The next day we were doing another training and acclimatization hike up to Mount Benete, and that's what I had been looking at. Wow, it was a good grind. It wasn't too long, but some good vertical. 5,000 meters, so a little over 16,000 feet. Beautiful peak. We did have to wear, towards the top, our climbing helmets, and I won't say technical, but you were doing some, I'll call bouldering, where you were on all fours at times. Yeah. But back to camp, and then the next day, we were doing a carry up to Camp Canada, so about 2,100 feet of gain there. Dump stuff in the 2 dome tents, and yeah, absolutely spectacular views from up at Camp Canada. Back down, spent the night, and had a big meal, and the next day it was time to do our thing. So packs the next morning, had these bad boys on, and it was time to begin the fun, if you want to call it that. One thing I will say about AMG, and I think the others do offer this as well, forgive me, but you can have porters carry gear, extra cost, and there are costs associated on weight. And I think it's a 10 kilo, 15 kilo, and a 20 kilo. You can also hire them to go one way, so it would be from Plaza de Mulas up to Camp 3, or you can have them bring gear both ways. So know that that is available, but you know, a lot of people carried their own stuff. So day one, Camp Canada, again, about 2,100 feet of gain. Reaching over here, I did bring a pee bottle. Has a nice wide mouth too for aiming purposes. But when you get to altitude, it happened to me in Kili, happened to me again here, but it is a natural bodily function. You pee a lot. And, you know, it's easy to get out of the sleeping bag, get on your knees, use this. Women, there's a funnel. But I do want to encourage you to, when you can, get out of your tent at night, because you have things like this view that you get to see. The stars are just abundant and plentiful. Being in the southern hemisphere, it was my first time, and you do see a lot of different stuff than where I live in certainly in the northern hemisphere. Something too that I did buy, a few of us had them, but were these down booties. The bottoms aren't the best. Did they keep me warm? Yes. I think I would try something different. That's just me, but did they work? They did. But with the rock and the terrain that was there, these bottoms didn't do very well. So your call. I don't think I would buy those again. I want to back up just real quick. Before we left Plaza de Mulas, again, another medical check, blood oxygen, heart, lungs, and blood pressure. Sorry about that. So Confluencia, mandatory medical check. Plaza de Mulas, mandatory medical check. Spent the night Camp 1, and the next day going up to Camp 2 wasn't very far, but it was pretty pitchy. Camp 2, expansive ranger station there, and that's as high as the helicopters could fly. A little over 17,000 feet, and the gain that day wasn't too bad. I think it was about 1,700 feet of vertical. Windy, and windy. We were there 2 days, two nights. This second day, we actually did a kind of a practice hike, and we worked on our crampons. We went to kind of a snowy field, and we did crampon training, both, you know, putting them on, and you should do that at home as well, but putting them on and, you know, walking around, and a couple of different types of walking uphill and downhill. that they showed us. So that was important. But the morning of going to Camp 3, oh my gosh, it was so windy. I mean, like windy. I got out of my tent. I said to my tent mate, Sam, I said, I'm going to go ask Rodrigo, our lead guide, if we were actually going to go. And sure enough, we went. And I actually wore my Gore-Tex wind pants. It was a hard shell, and that helped me a lot on that trip. But yeah, Camp 3, we lost one team member on the way to Camp 3, purely just ran out of gas, and that can happen. We got up to Camp 3, and it's about 19,700 feet. We ended up losing another teammate due to having some maybe acute symptoms of HACE, high altitude cerebral edema. They did give that teammate a shot of dexamethasone and got him back down to Camp 2 as quick as possible, and then back down to base camp at Plaza de Mulas. That prompted our guide to do a quick blood oxygen test on everybody. And yeah, this is what got me. So I think a combination, I thought I was consuming enough fluids. I know I wasn't eating enough. I did not have a loss of appetite. But also on YouTube, I would look at some of the breathing techniques for high altitude. I had looked at those, and I know what to do. But anyhow, my reading on the blood oxygen was below their level of, I believe it's 70 for a number. Tested me again that night before we all called it an evening. I was still below, and tested me again in the morning. Wake up was at 4, and departure for summit was at 5. I was still below, and yeah, the decision was best that I don't go. Happened to another teammate as well. So of the 5 of us left at Camp 3, only 3 went to the summit, and those 3 did make it. So disappointed, yes. Went up to 20,000 feet during the later that morning, and yeah, I was bummed. But again, the point was following the rules, listening to our guide, and the next point is I get back December 23rd, and 5 weeks later, first week of February, I think 3 people died up on Aconcagua. Again, altitude related, but the third one was more not listening to the guide, and that's so important, people. Summit ego, I think, is a bit of a cliche term. We all want to get there, but you know, what is it? Getting to the top is optional. Getting down is mandatory. And anyhow, the third one didn't listen. The guide said we should not go, and it was weather related at the time, but got to the top. You know, I want to say 2 things too. The guide said, let's not go. The client guest said, no, we're going. I understand this is this is protocol. The guide calls that into the ranger station and says, hey, here's the deal. But the guide is also obliged to go with the guest if the guest says, hey, we're going. So anyhow, they got to the top. On the way back down, you know, unfortunately the guest succumbed to altitude and didn't make it. So ego aside, people, again, listen to your body and make sure you make the right choices. You know, that said, we got back down to base camp. Again, it was Argentina. It was December. We got back down to base camp just in time to watch the second half of the finals that, of course, Argentina played France. And so we had two Frenchmen in our group, and we were all huddled around a laptop watching this incredible match going on. And Argentinians went crazy. But hey, back down, from base camp the next day, I said earlier, 16 miles from base camp to the park entrance. And again, you went down about 5,000 feet of vert, but 9 hours. And let me tell you, folks, that was long. It was long, and it was not easy. I did wear my knee brace sleeves, and I felt that helped me certainly immensely. Hey, if you have any questions, email is in my profile. I'll also put a link for Aconcagua mountain guides. I'm going with ProTrek Adventure group out of Kathmandu, Nepal to EBC, and I'll put their web link in here as well in case you're thinking about doing something like that. I'm certainly looking forward to it, but I'm really, really seriously thinking of going back to Aconcagua. It's there. I feel I know what I did wrong, and I could certainly do a lot better. But hey, I hope that I covered some tidbits, and if you're thinking about it and ask me a question, email me. If you put a comment below, I'll certainly get back to you as soon as possible. But with that said, thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you on the next video, which should be out in 2 to 3 weeks, and I hope you'll get a chance to look at that one as well. But in the meantime, as I like to say, keep putting one foot in front of the other.